Dear learners, this is the third unit of the comparative government and politics, and today I am going to discuss in this unit that is the classifications of constitutions. That means कि when we talking about the constitutions and classification of the constitutions, constitutions can be classified in the various way based on different criteria. Here are the main types of the constitutions and their detailed characteristics. One is written and unwritten constitutions. In the whole world, constitutions are divided into two parts, that is written constitutions and second is unwritten constitutions. Written constitutions may be sometimes called as codified constitutions and unwritten constitutions may be called sometimes uncodified constitutions. When we're talking about the written constitutions have some kind of the important features like the codified in a single way and a formal legal documents. The written constitutions clearly outline the structure, functions, power of the government, institutions, specify the rights and duty of the citizens. That means ki each and everything is mentioned in the that legal documents like the functions of the government agency, function of the president, functions of the member of parliament. That means important positions of the governments and bureaucracy, they are all mentioned in the constitution. They are also mentions their appointment process, their qualifications, and all the things. In addition to mentions of the government authority, there is also clearly mentions the rights and duty of the citizens. That means A to Z is mentioned in the constitutions. This is called the written constitutions. For examples, United States Americans constitutions. This is a written constitutions and that was adopted in the 1787 and is one of the oldest written constitutions still that is using. Indian constitutions that is adopted in the 1950 and it is one of the lengthiest constitutions in the world. That means Indian constitutions have written A to Z in everything in that particular constitutions. That's why Indian constitutions have lengthiest constitutions. What is the significance of the written constitutions? When we're talking about the significance of the written constitutions, that provides clear guidance and reduce ambiguity. This is very important thing. That means there is no any kind of the confusions and is easier to reference and interpret for legals and governance purpose. So these are the important features and some examples and also their main significance. Now come to the second part of that is called the unwritten constitutions. That means in unwritten constitutions, no codified in a single document consists of various sources like statutes, conventions, judicial decisions, and historical documents. That means not a single document of the constitutions compiled in a single documents, but they have different kind of the using the sources like the convention, judicial decisions, historical documents, and also some kind of the practices of the norms of that country. These are the important features. And unwritten constitutions evolve over the time through the practice and precedents. That means a kind of the practice or precedent, they are all part of the unwritten constitutions. For examples of the unwritten constitutions that the United Kingdom rely on states like the Magna Carta, common law, conventions, work of authority. So these are the examples of the United Kingdom's significance. This is the significance flexibles and adaptables to changing circumstances without formal amendments reflect the historicals and cultural evolutions of nations governance. That means this is the also part of the unwritten constitutions. Now come to the second classifications of the constitutions of the world, that is rigid and flexible constitutions. When we're talking about the rigid constitutions, that means it is difficult to amend or change of the constitutions. There is no easy process to amendment of the constitutions. They require a special procedures, often involving supermajority approval in the legislature or a referendum. That means when we're talking about the rigid constitutions, there is no easy process for the reforming of the constitutions, amendment of the constitutions, and there is a very difficult process for amendment. That constitutions is called rigid constitutions. Next is called that is we can call it the examples that is United States constitutions require a two-third majority in both the houses of Congress and ratifications by three-fourths of the states or amendments. This is called a kind of the call the examples of rigid constitutions. German Basic Law amendment required two-thirds majority in the, both the Bundestag and Bundesrat. This is the parliaments of the German and they require also two-thirds majority. What is the significance of rigid constitutions? Rigid constitutions provide some kind of the stability and continuity in the country and also in the governance systems. It also prevent hasty or frequent changes that could undermine the legal framework. This is very important things of the significance. Now come to the important parts of the constitutions that is called the flexible constitutions. When we're talking about the flexible constitutions, that is easier to amend or change. That means any nations or any parliament can easily amend the constitutions. That is called the flexible constitutions. Can be modified through the ordinary legislative process. There is no any kind of the special majority for the amendments and all the things. For the examples, United Kingdom constitutions can be altered by simple majority in the parliament. There is no need of the two-third or a special majority for the amendment of the constitutions of the United Kingdom. This is called the flexible constitutions as a examples. Significance allow to for quick adoptions of new circumstances and challenges. This is very important parts for the significance. Second, facilitate reforms and progressive change. This is also important for the things. Next important classifications of the constitutions that is federals and unitary constitutions. The federal constitutions have important features like divide power between central governments and regional governments, states or provinces. That means when we talking about the a federal or unitary constitutions, federal has some kind of the divisions of power between states and its unitary, like these central government and state governments. Both level of government have their own area of jurisdictions. That means they have their own area of jurisdictions, like we call in India is central list and a state list, and sometimes is also concurrent list. For example, United States federal system with their clear division of power between the federal governments and a state government. That means when we talking about the divisions, like they have the banking, insurance, railway, telecommunications, these are coming under the federal government and a state government like the police, law and order, security, prisons. These are coming into the state government. So this is the examples of the federal governments. India federal structures with power shared between the central governments and the state governments. That means India is also examples of the federal governments. What are the significance of federal governments? When we talking about the federal governments, that means accommodate diverse regions and culture within the single country, promote local governance and decentralizations. These are two important significance of the federal government. First important significance that is accommodate diverse regions and cultures within a single country and promote a local governance and decentralizations. Now come to the unitary constitutions. When we're talking about the unitary constitutions, that means centralized power in a single national government. There is no any kind of the provinces or state governments. Regional or local authority, if there exist, operate under the authority of the central governments. For example, France, unitary state with administrative divisions governed by the central governments, and Japan, unitary system with centralized government over the local governments. This is very important parts of the things. Now come to the important significance of these things is about the uh, we talking about the ensure uniform policy and law across the entire country, simplify governance and administrative process. This is very important part of the unitary constitutions. Now come to the next classifications of the constitutions, that is parliamentary and presidential constitutions. First, that is the parliamentary constitutions. When we talking about the parliamentary constitutions, that executive branch derive its legitimate from the legislatures and is accountable to it. Head of the state and head of the government's roles are often separated. This is two important features of the parliamentary constitutions. Executive branch derive its legitimate legitimacy from the legislature and is accountable to the its legislature part. Second important thing, a state and head of the government roles are often separated. For example, United Kingdom Prime Minister is head of the governments and accountable to the parliaments, and the monarch is a ceremonial head of the states. This is the basic examples of the parliamentary system of government. In India, President is the ceremonial head of the states, while the Prime Minister is the head of the government. This is also second examples of the parliamentary constitutions. What is the significance of the parliamentary systems? That is promote collaborations between the executive and legislative branches. Second, often provide more stable and continuous governance. These are very important parts of the classification of the parliamentary system of governance. Now come to the presidential constituents characteristics. President is both head of the states and head of the governments. That means ki president is the head of the state and head of the government. Executive branch is separated from the legislature and independently elected. They are not part of the legislature parts. For example, United States, president is elected independently of the Congress and serve as both head of the state and head of the government. Similarly, Brazil also a president system with independent elected president. Significance: clear separations of power between executive and legislature branch. Provides direct accountability of the president to the voters. They are not accountable to the parliaments. This is the very important features or significance of the presidential type of the constitutions. Now come to the another classifications that is called the monarchals and republican constitutions. Monarchical constitutions, that is monarch is the head of the state with varying degree of actual powers and can be absolute or constitutional where monarch power are limited by law or by constitutions. This is very important things when we talking about these important parts. Monarch is the head of the state with varying degree of actual power. For example, United Kingdom constitutional monarchy with the monarch power largely ceremonial and symbolic. And second important thing, that is Saudi Arabia, absolute monarchy with the king having significant governing powers. Significance: provides continuity and traditions through the hereditary monarchy, and in constitutional monarchy combines democratic governance with ceremonial traditions. This is very important parts of the monarchical constitutions. Of this, next to that is called the Republican constitutions. When we talking about the Republican constitutions, that is the head of the state is usually elected, often serving as a fixed term. And this is also in the Republican country. They emphasize the sovereignty of the peoples and the rule of law. Both is important in the Republican constitutions. Rule of law, that indicates nobody is above the law. Every persons have equal powers and equal treatment by the authority. Examples: France Republic with elected president as a head of the state, and United States Republic uh, with the elected president and system based on popular sovereignty. Significance: emphasize that is democratic principles and the accountability of the leaders. That means ensure that leadership is based on the merits and popular choice rather than hereditary. This is very important things of the classifications of republican constitutions. Now come to the classification of constitutions, that is also divided into theoreticals and secular constitutions. Theoretics, that is Iran based on religious principles, that is not a secular country. When we're talking about the secular, like France, separate religions from the government, there is not over mix up of the system of governments and government and religions. Next is enabling and limited constitutions. Enabling, that is China grant based power to the grant broader power to the governments, and limited that USA restrict government power to provide individuals right. This is very limited restrict government to power to the individuals. This is very important parts of the enabling and limited constitutions. Now come to the conclusion parts of the classifications of the constitutions. Constitutions, regardless of their types, serve as the cornerstone of a country legal and political frameworks. They provide the basis of governance, protect the rights of the citizens, and ensure the rule of law. The variety of constitutional type reflect the diversity of governance system around the world, each tailored to the unique historical, cultural, and political context of the different country. This is the very important parts of the comparative government and politics. That means that we have the different types of the constitutions, like written constitutions and written constitutions. Written constitutions, that is in the codified formal documents, unwritten constitution, that is uncodified, but they have different kind of the sources like the judicial decisions or parliament conventions, president, and all the things. Sometimes we also classify the constitutions on the basis of like the flexibility and rigidity constitutions. Those constitutions amended very easily, that is called flexible constitutions, and those constitutions are amended in difficult process, that is called rigid constitutions. And also be called the monarchals and republic constitutions. That means that they are head of the estates, may be hereditary like the United Kingdoms, but most of the estate of the world, they are follow the republican constitutions. Some constitutions are also like they call on the basis of performance, like the secularisms and religious. So these are the important classifications of the constitutions of the whole world. Thank you for listening these lectures.